Good afternoon, welcome from Melbourne. My name is Dr. Fletcher and I'm going to walk you through this very brief introduction of supply chain disruption. You'll see in front of you a diagram and you'll see you've got suppliers on the top and the failures that would happen with some suppliers. We see delivery delays, price currency fluctuation, counterfeiting, poor packaging, spoilage, improper handling. There's diversion in different markets, grey market areas, and unanticipated demand and surge of drop-off. So this is our normal supply chain movement from raw materials all the way down to the end user. And at the end user, we see this one as a healthcare centre. So at the bottom now, we look at unanticipated supply chain constraints. We see political upheaval, infrastructure outages, and of course pandemics and natural disasters. These are all in the same subset. And this is going to create work stoppages, labour disputes, and possibly companies going broke. And of course theft as well. Now I'm going to play very quickly a short video of the coronavirus. This was taken from the 2nd of February, so it's quite late into the situation, and it goes through to the 3rd of March. And I'm going to be talking during this video. Okay, so you see China is quite dark now. China has 50,000 climbing, and if you note on this side here, you'll see the darkness means it's 50,000 plus. The US and Canada have only really just come into the situation, and other parts of the world are also just coming into the situation. So imagine you have a supply chain running from the US to China and back again. Well, that's just been taken away now. It's gone. It's stopped moving. And anywhere else in the world, Australia to China to India, backwards and forwards, they've all been disrupted to the effect where they're almost, some are not running at all, and some are running very, very slowly. And as the situation gets worse, more and more people panic and they throw money at the problem, and that's not the way to do it. They need to address the actual issues in the supply chain and find alternatives out of that supply chain. And that may mean stopping and rethinking the whole process of that supply chain. So this is going to run through to the 3rd, and then it's going to cut off. So the next slide, you'll see this is our world, and these are the most common products. So you'll see in Russia we have petroleum products. We have copper, we have electronic goods in China, machinery. We have coal in Australia. And then on the other side of the world, we have capital goods coming from the USA. All the way down to soybean products. So again, these supply chains have all been disrupted. Some of them stopped completely, some of them slowed down, some of them damaged. Here's the number of our corona cases around the world. We're at the moment at 2.79. This is most recent. And you can see here the United States sits right in there at 925,000 people affected. Some of those people will be working in those supply chains and they'll be either in isolation. Most countries have been quite smart about this and they've kept their essential businesses working. Okay, so what do we do in this situation where we have a supply chain risk? Well, we need to look at our supply chain, support our workforce, which a lot of governments have done. They put in packages to support workers so they have money, and that some of these companies that have had to stop can rebuild and start immediately after all of this dies down. So we've got to have transparency on our multi-tier supply chains, and we have to list all those critical components that we rely on and make sure they have been protected. And in a lot of cases that hasn't happened, and medical supplies is a good example here. We need to estimate our available inventory and hold sufficient amounts of safety stock, or be able to get safety stock from somewhere else. We have to assess our realistic demand from our end users and realize in a situation like this that demand is going to go like that. and people are going to start to panic, and that demand is going to be tested. We have to optimize our production and distribution capacities as well to know that we're able to meet those, and we have to have good communication there. So again, you see the PPE there, the personal protective equipment, that has been exploited, and some countries have run out of it altogether and been panicking to get it back in. We have to identify and secure logistics capacities. We have to manage cash and networking capital and run stress tests to understand where our supply chain issues could have a supply, financial supply for money coming in to support those supply chains. Okay, so once we've done that, we need to build our resilience. So that's really, we're going to be taking what we know now and building a better system in the future. So there's going to be a lot of addressing on how come the supply chain wasn't able to perform. We were all told this wouldn't happen and our supply chain will be fine. All the experts, all these consultants we paid, and it hasn't happened. So they haven't really looked at how to establish their supplier risk functions correctly, and that's resulted in these issues. So you need a strategy for this. You need a risk estimate tool to also address the impact of those risks. You need to have processes and tools created for this crisis period, and these will be codified into a formal documentation. Could be color-coded, could be numbered, lettered, and this will become your nerve center inside your company. We need to also look at stronger supplier collaboration. Those suppliers that have met our needs, we need to look after them. We need to digitize our supply chain and improve the speed and accuracy of it. AI, I think, is going to play a very big part in supply chains in the future. We need to consider inshoring or essential item manufacturing. That's happening now at the moment in the US, where they've realized they had antibiotics made in China. They need antibiotics badly now, and they haven't been able to get them. So they're now looking in Mexico for close shoring or inshoring in their own countries again. So supply chains are going to move out of countries and move back to their own for those essential products. There's also the other area where they would create a computer simulation. Now, this is where a supply chain runs a model built on that supply chain or a part of that supply chain that's essential and looks for vulnerabilities. So you do a computer simulation, you run it, and you see where the vulnerabilities are. So the next slide, this is one we did for our client in Indonesia. And they were getting timber products from Indonesia. And this is where they were getting them from. So this is all of the supply chains going around to other countries. They were getting the wood from here, coming into here, into their main factory, and it was going out from there. This area here, they had a problem with a bridge. The bridge, there was a traffic issue, and they had to bring their supply chain around the long way through here. Sorry, this is the bridge here, around through here, and come back through here. And this created considerable time. We located a port here, a deep water port, where they could use barges to bring the product. So once they got it to here, they could go to here through the barges, and it would be much quicker just going from here, because this was taking serious delays on their supply chain. So if we look at this number here, these are the days that the supply chain is running now. You can see this is an actual model of an actual supply chain. You can see day 10. You can see products. These are all the color-coded products. And you will see eventually with the ships coming in, they'll come into a point, and then if you keep watching these numbers, see how that's dropping there, that's going up there. These are going to run out soon. Once they run out, we will see the supply chain stop. Once we know that, we can improve our supply chain, and we can improve it, and we can make that supply chain work. Okay, the next one now is the business and operational risks, and this we call the domino effect. So this is what happened when the Japanese had that big earthquake all those years ago. Look at the nuclear plant at the bottom quarter here, the bottom quarter. You see there was contamination and property damages, all these things, all these issues. This is an external look at a supply chain with financial, strategic, operational, and hazards. And if you look at it, a lot of things were affected. Now, the situation we're in at the moment is like a massive cloud has covered this whole thing and gone even further out from the actual supply chain. It's gone right out here and covered it. And that cloud is COVID-19. This is just the scratching of the surface. It's going to get a lot more worse before it gets better, but you'll see the improvements coming through for supply chains, and you're probably seeing it now in countries where supply chains were affected for food supplies, how they've improved now, where they've gone back and they said, oh, this is what's happening, we need to do this, and they fixed it. So supply chain disruption is about planning and preparing. This is just a very brief touching on the subject to give you an intro. We're going to be running a 2 or possibly a 3-day program on the supply chain disruption, where we will be looking at supply chain modeling and showing you how you can get on top of this so it doesn't happen to you or your company. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm going to sign off now, and I want you all to please be safe, look after your families, and we're all going to come out of this, and we're all going to be working much more smarter in our supply chains, in our procurement functions, and everything else. So thank you, and look after yourselves, and I'll see you on